Hi, my name is Ben Atkinson and welcome to the Functional Health Podcast. I interview some of the leading voices in nutrition and lifestyle medicine, and I will share with you their stories, their expertise and their advice, shedding light on the industry from each of their perspectives to help improve your health from today. This week, I'm delighted to share with you my conversation with Daniel O'Shaughnessy. Daniel is a nutritional therapist and functional medicine practitioner with an expertise in LGBTQ+ health and well-being. I really enjoyed this conversation. It was hugely immersive and eye-opening, and I really hope you enjoy it too. So, without further ado, Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It is wonderful to have you on.
I know. I think I remember interviewing you once for a BANT podcast. So.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
But it's been a long time. I followed your work for ages, actually, and I always meant to reach out. So I'm really glad that we're connecting now, especially since you launched your new book, Naked Nutrition.
Thank you. Yes, it's actually the month anniversary today for releasing that. So first time author. It's quite an interesting journey. So it's and it's a book that means a lot to me. So it's all about the LGBTQ plus nutrition, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. So it's a lot of diet and lifestyle tips for our community and well, not for everyone really, but very targeted at our community because there was no resource out at the time. So that's why from my years of nutrition and life experience, I was managed to put that together. So.
Yeah, and it's brilliant, and it's very easy to assimilate and read as well, which is perfect in my eyes.
Perfect.
For kind of like a public. Yeah, you're very, very welcome. So to set the scene, it might be good just to dive into, and it's the typical question that everyone asks on the podcast, but in this instance, I think it's actually very, very important to ask it. So what has your journey been to where you are today?
It's quite an unexpected journey, let's put it that way. So I wasn't one of these classical, I have such chronic health issues that I only then become a nutritionist because I find nutrition helped me. Yes, I did have some like skin conditions and digestive conditions, and I was quite interested in nutrition, but my actual background was in drug addiction. And I used to work as a drug addiction counselor, and I used to see, I really enjoyed helping people with that. But I saw the industry was very about numbers, funding. So it wasn't actually about helping the client. I used to work with these clients and just see how the impact of nutrition could just help their day a little better. So that started fueling the main interest into like the nutrition and lifestyle route. And then I studied at the Institute for Optimum Nutrition. That was 10 years ago. I graduated. And it just seems right. And that we were one of the first classes of functional medicine, which is looking at the, whole system and the body holistically and looking at the root cause of ill health, which I'm sure you and, your listeners are fully aware of. And it just like, for me, I've been working with clients for 10 years now, and there's no template in order to help someone. And really you have to try to consider the individual as much as you can in what you're doing. And it's generally, a lot of clients have come to me have been frustrated with the not getting the answers they want from, other health providers or even the conventional medical route, which the medical route is amazing. But there are some chronic health concerns that don't get addressed in that way, such as, an example is IBS. It just, the label, it just means a collection of symptoms. So people come a bit frustrated, and, if you do a bit of background listening, research, maybe some testing, you can really understand someone and be able to help them in that way possible. So I've had quite a varied career in nutrition. So seeing clients is one thing I do. I've worked on retreats for a bit. I've done corporate work, talking to people, and talking to companies. And most recently, I've started taking my years of experience and gone, right, okay, now's the time to write a book. I felt initially pressured. I had to write a book, but I just waited and waited and waited until I didn't want to release a book that's already out there. And I wanted to release something that was from my heart as well, and say, not everyone can afford a nutritionist. They're quite, they can be quite expensive. The work we do, it's not cheap, but, most people can be able to afford, £8 on a book that might actually give them the information they would get in a session as well, or help them be able to say that they need to find a nutritionist, nutritional therapist to reach out. So that's pretty much my professional career that's led me to write the book. Yeah, it's been very, very rewarding, sometimes frustrating, as anything in self-employment goes. But yeah, I do enjoy what I do. It's my calling. And I think as long as you find a way to almost manipulate the industry to your liking in terms of how you want to work with people and what you actually want to do, I think that's the kind of key fact I learned,
Yeah, well, I think that's fundamentally key, isn't it? Follow your passion, and if you can make your passion your job, that is amazing that you've been able to do that.
Yeah, it's tough, and I found myself going down the template of how I feel I should be doing, and it was a little bit against the grain. And now I'm doing what I enjoy doing, and it's, sometimes I say no to clients, sometimes I, don't take work on if it doesn't feel right, and I know that's quite hard to do, especially if you're starting out. But I'm pleased I've got to a stage where now I can say I want to do the work that I really enjoy, So the book is what I enjoy, and then helping people both with their health and also their whole constitution, which includes their spirituality. So.
Yeah, that is fundamentally key, and it really is comprehensive. I really enjoyed reading it, to be honest with you. And you touch upon areas which, like you said, haven't really been talked about before within a book like this. When you were writing it, were you considering all the kind of common conditions and dysfunctions that you see in clinic, and that informed the book, or what was the process behind it?
Well, there's two. Let's just say there's different avenues of exploration I went down. I do have some clients that are LGBTQ plus, and from that I used to see them either coming in with a specific health issue related to like being part of that community. So that could be, for example, someone is transgender and they need help to support their transition process. That's just one example. Or they perhaps were their lifestyle practices impacted their ability to enjoy life based on poor digestion, for example. So if a gay man has poor digestion, it's going to impact their sex life, for example. So these are some of the areas, the two main clinical areas I saw. So it's either someone coming for a specific need or someone coming for a lifestyle related issue. But then I also saw myself from a first person angle, looking at when I saw the gay scene, the LGBTQ plus scene, and then putting my functional medicine mind on it, thinking, why is this not being catered for? Why is no one talking about the side effects to hormone therapy? Why is no one talking about what people can do when they go out partying and how to help recover for the next week? I call it Black Tuesday, but or what about the physical aspects of LGBTQ plus mental health? All the books you read are all about like shame, trauma, and talking about mental health, but nothing from what can you do to help support your mental health from a physical perspective. Mm-hmm. And then how can you eat well if you are living with HIV, for example? So these are some of the topics that I write about in the book, just to kind of give that. I said in the book, I said I want to empower someone to step up and take responsibility for their own health. Because also some of these topics, they may not be comfortable going to any practitioner, whether they're LGBTQ plus or not, and say, yes, I take substance use. I do substances at the weekend, or I am living with HIV and I need support with that. And sometimes people are misunderstood. Like, I remember going to a doctor just for some random checkup, and I remember going to a doctor just for a random checkup, and I'm on a PrEP medication, which is a medication to help prevent HIV, and he automatically assumed that I have HIV. So it's about the education. Oh, my dog's sneezing. Can we do it again?
You barely picked it up, so I wouldn't worry.
All right, okay.
How is your dog, by the way? Is the Dachshund, right?
Yeah, she's here. She's on my lap. She's a bit. There we go. Much better. This is my lockdown choice. Sneezing. So
yeah. For the listeners, they won't be able to see this because this will be audio, but I will link to a picture of Daniel's Dachshund. Absolutely adorable.
Yeah. The thing is, no one cares about me now. All they do is care about the dog. And if they post like nutrition content on Instagram or TikTok, they're like, yeah, where's Wallace? And then I think Wallace has got double the amount of followers I have on TikTok than I do. I accidentally put a video up, and it just was, it just went viral, and so just have to go with the flow, I guess. This viral dog.
Maybe that's the best way to gain followers for nutrition. You have a post about nutrition, and then another post immediately afterwards about the dog, and then you just
I think that's what I tried to do. I tried to get the dog in many pictures of the book. So
that's smart. It's smart. Going back to the book, so. And I'm going to get this right. By the way, I always do my best to get the terminology right around this, but you're going to have to correct me if I get this wrong in any way, shape or form. Because I'm still learning, and as I think we all are, but in terms of the correct terminology around things. So as a heterosexual cisgendered man, I thought this was extremely important to learn about as a nutritionist, the kind of health difficulties, potentially issues within this community, which are potentially different from that of others. So I don't think this book is just for this community. I think it's for anyone who wants to learn about how to support people from a range of backgrounds. I thought it was eye-opening in that regard.
Yeah, I think it's good to have a knowledge. And even if you are from the community, not all chapters in that book will be relevant for you, but yes. I do say to read it all with intent to understand what other people in this community are going through. Mm-hmm. It's quite important. But I think when I wrote the book started writing the book initially, the main criticisms were coming from the community itself, because they were saying, why do we need this book? What's the point of this book? Because I think if you're not familiar with functional medicine, all you do is think nutrition is gaining muscle and losing weight. Really?
That's what I did when I was about 16, 17. That is what my main goal was, right?
Yeah. So that's just the thing. All people think about nutrition is about eating what to eat. It's not thinking about opening nutrition up as how it can help with complex diseases and even supporting overall health. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think it's, and also some of these tips, like you say, the information, like heterosexual people go out and party too, and there's no nutrition book out there to support, partying in that way. And we've got to look at this as some people go out at the weekend or even whenever they go out and party, and people take substances. It's just, we've got, there's no point beating around the bush and saying, let's not talk about it because it's illegal. But millions of people take drugs,
yes.
And so, what's better? Supporting your nutrition so you have less chance of come downs, calling in sick at work, making yourself feel better, eating better during the week, and maybe perhaps even a knock-on effect of thinking, I'm supporting my health, so therefore I don't really want to go out and take these drugs at the weekend. So that's why I'm including all this information. It's also just no shame around it.
Yeah. Well, that's such an important point as well, because ideally, Like, I think we could both say, ideally, you wouldn't do the drugs. But if you are going to do them, these are the things that you can do to support your health. And you're so right in terms of a mindset shift of when you're supporting your health, you don't want to do things which are necessarily taking away from it. And I think this is always the case when people start on a healthy lifestyle journey, they're less likely to choose the bad option. I say the bad option, the less healthy option, whether it be, I don't know, choosing a big plate of carbonara over, I don't know, some meat and vegetables, whatever it may be, something which is going to be more nutritious at dinner time, for example.
Absolutely. That's exactly it. And, and I've also written this in a way of, look, go out and enjoy yourself every now and then. Yeah. It's not bad. It's not bad for your soul to let go and relax a bit. I'm not condoning any behavior, but I'm not also going to tell you off for doing it. And I think that's where I've got kind of my success, because my clients can talk to me and be like, actually, this happened, or I did this. And it's just, you go to a sexual health service and you tell someone about whatever. They don't blink, it's your own self, your own shame about explaining these things or lifestyle behaviors that you're probably don't want people to judge. So it's a very interesting topic in the way to look at it. So.
Yeah, it's like with any kind of like health condition or issue like that, you want the health professional involved to approach it judgment free. I think that's hugely important and probably overlooked in a lot of circumstances as well.
Yeah, and I think it's also important for practitioners to really understand. And I think it's been really nice that I've had a lot of practitioners reach out to me and say, this book was really needed. I had a great education from reading this. And, they might not see many LGBTQ plus clients in their clinic, but at least they're aware of it if someone walks in and says, this is how it is. So.
Yeah, and that kind of education is really important. Like you mentioned, as a gay man, digestive issues can affect sexual health. And if you're a nutritionist, which may be, I don't know, naive to that kind of thing, someone might come in with those kinds of issues and not want to open up necessarily, and therefore you're not able to relate to them. And then, but understanding where they're coming from through resources like the one that you've written, I think will be hugely important as practitioners to empower the patient to get better, but also your own knowledge as well, so you can help more people.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's exactly how it is. So I hope so anyway. I mean, the book's only a month old, so we'll see.
Well, no, it was eye-opening for me, so I think I've bashed on about it enough. Do you feel that there are major differences between this community and like the general community? Like when you were writing the book, did this become like immensely apparent? Actually, let's stick with one thing. You mentioned the party life, and this is always something which is interesting to me with regards to the LGBTQ plus community, because you mentioned there being everyone parties, but you mentioned it being like quite prominent within this community. What do you think drives this scene?
It's a very quite a big question, I think. Well,
let's break it down.
I'll try and unpick it a bit. So, the LGBTQ plus party scene is pretty huge, and we've had a history, especially from the 80s, of having quite intense parties. Now, particularly gay men, not all gay men I'm talking about here. Some gay men, there is the scene known as the circuit scene, or even the Berlin kind of queer scene. And in these scene, there are drugs that generally only gay men would use. It does happen in the heterosexual scene, but they're more known as the things called club drugs. These are drugs such as GBL, crystal meth, cocaine's also used, MDMA as well. But cocaine and MDMA are used in the heterosexual scene. But there are targeted drugs called club drugs, and these are also drugs that are also used for sex purposes. So in the party scene, people are using quite intense, and people can go out partying in whatever scene, go out Friday and come home Monday. You know, it's quite, these drugs will keep you awake for a long time, and you'll be, you know, running on adrenaline. You won't be eating all weekend. You know, I've seen it, witnessed it, you know, seeing what happens in this scene. And I just thought, you know, why is this not being talked about? All that's being talked about is safer using, how to use drugs in a safer environment, or, you know, what to do in an event of overdose, or what if addiction is coming to the surface. And, you know, on the note of addiction, not everyone is addicted to drugs. There are people that go out and use recreationally. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times you'll see at circuit parties, for example, people are quite affluent. There's a lot of money there, and people are, you know, and so in these environments, you know, there's no discrimination about people taking drugs or whatever it is. It's just people there. Maybe perhaps they're there to have a good time. Perhaps they're on holiday, whatever it is. But there's no, and in the scene, there's this kind of like subculture of, we kind of know that we should be taking 5-HTP once we're partying, or we should be doing X, Y, Z. So, but these drugs aren't good for us. Let's put it that way. You know, if you put someone like, you know, crystal meth is probably one of the most dangerous drugs that we have, because it's highly addictive, psychologically addictive. And, you know, GBL, it's not the best for your body, you know, and there's probably not even to have to look at studies for that. But if you spilt it on your laptop, it can actually melt the laptop. You know, people are drinking this. So, yeah. And you can actually get physically addicted to it. So there are some real precautions that you have to take. But the way I'm looking at it is like, well, right, I'm not going to go out there and tell people not to take these drugs. But what about if we just cushion it a bit as part of your harm reduction, in order to just take them with more care in mind? So if you're going to take these drugs, you know what to eat pre, during, and after. You know what perhaps supplements you need to take, or to consider helping support your neurotransmitters, your chemical messengers, which help, you know, give you help your mood, motivation, give you drive. Just give you options. And also, when people have, you know, what goes up must come down. So if people are taking drugs, the energy needs to get back into your body somehow. And it's like flushing a toilet with all of your energy going out. So you have such an intense high that most people get a come down where they feel rubbish for 3 or 4 days after taking these drugs. And probably the more of a bender you have and the less sleep you get, the harder the come down will be. Mm-hmm. So the way I look at it is just, what can I give you to help minimize this come down? And particularly, you know, I just want people to perhaps think, right, I feel awful. What can I do? Or I'm going to do this to help myself prevent feeling bad the next week. So it's just and I don't say to people it needs to be a whole prescription of 100 things to do. Even if they're just taking 2 or 3 tips out of my book to get them started, it might just help. And as I said before, the knock-on effect might be calling in sick less, or
yes,
you know, feeling that they can actually exercise the week after without feeling awful, or sleeping better, you know, just having a bit of better quality of life.
Yeah. So from what you've described, it seems like more of a cultural drive to this kind of party scene. And I think I resonate with so much of what you're saying, when if we are going to give people advice on like how to take drugs safely, we should also be giving them advice on how to recover to live a normal life when you're taking them. And this isn't necessarily promoting them, because we can do all we can about awareness of the negative consequences of these drugs, but really we want people to have as much as a normal life as possible if they are choosing to take these kinds of substances.
Yeah, and the thing is, people are afraid to even talk about this stuff because they know what they're doing is illegal. But the way I'm stripping it back is like, look, I'm not here to promote or tell you what's wrong. I'm just going to give you hopefully some antidotes to feeling a bit better during, afterwards, whatever it is, or just give you options that you might not even be able to ask someone, but you can read it in your own private life, and away from, and just think, well, these are my options. Perhaps things are getting a bit out of hand. Perhaps I do need to get some help, or I'm going to try this tip next time I go out to make myself feel less nausea, or whatever it is you get. So it's the thing with our community. It's not just party drugs. There's a whole, let's just say, je ne sais quoi that goes with this gay party scene. It's also about, the mental health aspects of fitting in. It's, perhaps people are taking anabolic steroids to look better at these parties, and so there's a whole cocktail of elements that in this kind of hybrid that we've created, which is the gay scene. And yeah, it can be great fun, but also it can also cause a lot of poor mental health for some.
Right. That's an absolutely fascinating topic. And I'd love to come back to that, but I'd like to rewind a little bit to focus on the supporting element around nutrition. Mm-hmm. Is there nutritional deficiencies or areas which you think can be improved in general within this community over others?
Well, there's, first of all...
And we're talking general here, by the way.
So generally, it's about what the drugs do that you're taking. So they give you such a boost of energy, but therefore then you're then depleted with energy afterwards in terms of neurotransmitters, so your chemical messengers. So perhaps it's looking at nutrition to be able to support that part of your recovery, to make you not have these energy lows. Nutrition also and lifestyle can, help with the side effects to taking these drugs. Perhaps you get really anxious when you're taking stimulants, and it's about understanding that. And perhaps there are some things that you can do to help calm your body a bit after partying or even during partying. Some of these drugs can cause nausea, and so it's about, could you perhaps consider what to eat before the party, during and after? So, and it could be something so simple that I put in the book about, preparing a smoothie and having it in the fridge. Because when you get home from these parties, you don't want to do it. You just want the least possible effort. And most people will either go for pizza or a milkshake or something. But if you've got a smoothie in the fridge that you drink slowly, because, you're in that stressful state that your body doesn't want to digest so much. And so, it can just give your body a bit of a, nourishment for, and I see, people go to parties, they just have junk food around. And yeah, I mean, I'm not someone to say never have that, but just know what, you got to have a bit of balance here and there. So yeah, there's nutrition pre, during and post. There's, what's it kind of eat to be able to support what's kind of missing in your body afterwards, and also the side effects. So that's just to name a couple.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And with regards to specific, because there's loads of different diets out there and different kind of dietary patterns, let's call them. Is there any one which you have a particularly, or let's repeat that. Is there any dietary pattern that you have a particular preference for over others?
Well, I don't. Well, the only pattern I think I have preference for is what works for that person. So
yeah, you're going to ask this the typical nutritional therapist answer.
I know, and I know it's annoying.
No,
but I see people preaching about calories and macros. Yeah, it might work for you, but when you really dig deep, what are you trying to do with your diet? Mm-hmm. Is it a form of control? And I'm now teaching people to try and come away from control and not to be so orthorexic around their dieting decisions, because that food is there meant to be enjoyed, not controlled so much. And if you have a healthy relationship with food, then you're going to navigate towards healthier foods. And this also means about how you feel about yourself. And a lot of people with trauma, with self-loathe, and they're not on the road to self-love, it doesn't matter what. I put on Instagram this morning, no diet will work if you don't love yourself. And that's a key thing, like, because if you really love yourself, you'll start to navigate towards healthy food anyway. And once you've got the education around what's healthy, you'll naturally choose that because you know you're nourishing, loving, like, and this is the reason why I've written the book, is to start to give people the building blocks to start loving themselves a bit more. That's my main message for the book. And so it could be that you really love the ketogenic diet. It could be that you love counting calories. Fine. But if that's what you love doing rather than you feel you have to do. Mm-hmm. And that's what I always feel with diet. It's like, yeah, we all know the many studies around the Mediterranean diet. Great. But, when you look at the Mediterranean diet in action, like if you've been to Spain or if you've been to, it's fried food basically. But the principles of the Mediterranean diet are amazing. And if it's just unprocessed and, but if you want a bit of cake, have a bit of cake,
Yeah. And don't beat yourself up about it afterwards.
Exactly. And that's the thing. The more you start to, most clients I have who find it difficult to lose weight are binge eating. And whether they tell me or not, I identify it. So, and binge eating is why you binge eating. Is it because food will naturally cause impulses in your brain, which either makes you feel something or numbs a feeling. Mm-hmm. And then you've got all the hunger hormones and all of that. But so food is just more than calories. But if you're eating, it's easy to eat 10 Kit Kats than, 3 bits of salmon and some brown rice. But this quick energy is just, it's also giving you a sensation, which perhaps you're trying to, there's some sort of mental health pattern in that. So, this is why I say what works for you. And I don't think, Rome's not built in a day. You're not going to go on this suddenly stop binge eating overnight, but perhaps, you can start to say, well, as part of my self-love regime, I'm going to make myself a healthy breakfast every day. And it sounds, you might think I'm completely crazy by saying this, but it works. Like, you start by, I start a self-love practice, and that's what I'm all about at the moment.
You've mentioned a couple of things there that I just want to unpick. So the first one being, like, you mentioned orthorexia, and like I look back at when I was younger, eating the typical, what I'd consider a bodybuilding type diet, right? So a gram of protein per pound of body weight, controlling my carbohydrates and fats to the absolute T, weighing everything out. And I was constantly thinking of the next meal. What am I going to have? Is it going to have the right macros in it, etc.? But every time I'd eat, I'd be thinking about the next one. And looking back on it, it was so unhealthy. It didn't affect my life, and I don't think it took over what I was doing because I was able to let go on the weekends and just put it aside. But I can understand why things like that get a hold of people. And how that affects mental health, I think, is a key thing as well. Because if I couldn't hit those macros, I was constantly thinking, I'm going to have to make up for that the next day.
Exactly. I've been exactly in the same position. I've been, just kind of an hour away from my breakfast, and it was like, oh God, I ate breakfast late. And so 11 o'clock, my next meal is going to be, and I'm like, I don't want to eat anything. I'm so full. And thinking, oh God, if I don't hit my protein, I'm not going to gain that kilo of muscle that I'm trying to get. And it just creates this, like, you become a bit neurotic around your diet, and it's not meant to do that. And you can actually, and all these diet supplements and whey protein and all of that, fine. Yeah, there is evidence that some of these supplements work really well. And yes, whey protein and protein powders are they're not like they're good. They're a good way to get that protein in your diet if you can't find it in other sources. But, do you really care about, if you miss a protein shake, if you, miss, you're 20 grams away from your protein target, your body doesn't really care so much about that. More of your mind does. And then why do you care so much? Like, what if you just go to the gym and really enjoy your workout rather than, the funniest thing I used to be like, if I had done I had a plan for 5 days workout, and perhaps I missed out shoulders on that week. I was going into like despair, thinking, how am I going to get to the gym because I'm busy this weekend? And it just, I just only until I started questioning my thoughts around control did I suddenly start feeling a bit more liberated around this and thinking, what's really important in life? Okay, so I missed the gym once last week. Who cares? I'll go and work out next week, or and I started having you get a better relationship. But it's very complicated because the gym and your macros is very tied into your appearance and therefore tied into your mental state. And particularly if you have trauma, childhood trauma, especially about being overweight or skinny, or finding it hard to get the body you want, or have feeling that you need the body to be able to fit in society or not be attacked or whatever it is. These are, I just think you should just question what your actual reasons for doing what you're doing are. And there's no wrong. If you love counting calories and counting macros and hitting your, gym goals, fine. But if you've got to as long as you've got a healthy relationship with it. And more often I see the unhealthy side.
I mean, on the topic of mental health and relating to orthorexia and things like that, do you see that being a kind of, how can I say this? Is it more ubiquitous within the LGBTQ plus community from your experience because of maybe, like you mentioned, past trauma and things that they might experience when they were younger, discrimination, things of that nature?
I think it's everywhere, but it is definitely highlighted in the LGBTQ plus community. Whether, even you're transgender and you're trying to look either more masculine or feminine, and you're trying to get into a situation where you're comfortable with how you look, or you're maybe a gay man with who has trauma of not fitting in or overcompensating with your body for some other reason, but this does happen. In fact, the people I tell most to calm the gym down are women.
Right.
And I find that my female clients, the amount of times they're doing high intensity workouts 5 times a week, exhausted and can't lose weight, and they can't work out why. And as soon as I say to them, calm down the exercise, and I have a bit of a, half an hour fight with them saying, please just try it, please just try it, please just try it. They go into more of a resistant, slower pattern of training. They lose weight instantly. And they're burning themselves out. And so it's not just in the LGBTQ plus community, but it's everywhere. We all want to, everyone doesn't quite feel good enough. We always walk around with kind of imposter syndrome. But it is highlighted in certain communities.
Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And it's really interesting to hear what you say about people over exercising, because we're constantly telling people to move more. Exercise is very, very good for them. But you're right, people can go too much the other way. And just to bring it back to my own personal experience when I was younger, I used to train like 5 to 6 times a week. And like yourself, if I missed a workout, I'd be like, oh, I'm going to have to double up next week or something ridiculous. And what would happen, though, is if I did miss a day, I tended to look better. And I think I was just stressing my body out too much. And those like rampant stress hormones going around really do affect like where you partition your weight and how much water weight you have, etc. So people just backing off of the exercise, especially if they're I'm going to do quote unquote addicted or doing too much, can really have a massive benefit. I completely agree with you.
100%. And then you add something like anabolic steroids in there, and people taking that, where they then feel they're on this mission because they're on this short cycle or however long they're on the cycle for, and they've got to get as many workouts and as many chicken breasts in. But it just you start falling over your own feet then, and then you just think like you end up eating loads of rubbish, and because you burn fat quicker, or you just go. So it's, I think, you've just got to have your health in mind of what you're doing. And in order to get your health in your mind, you've got to start loving yourself to be able to want to be healthy, right? And that's my personal journey with food. Is I was slightly on that spectrum, and I've started to now really love and nourish myself and think, right, this is where I don't care about my protein allowance anymore. Yeah, I'll try and hit it roughly, but I'm not going to weigh chicken breasts. It's unhealthy, you know?
Yeah. Well, I'm 100% with you. And maybe we can dive into your personal journey with regards to loving yourself a little bit more, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I've got quite a, I actually put my story out on YouTube the other day. So,
I'll link to that in the show notes for listeners.
Yeah, it's quite I decided to do it because just to show that everyone kind of struggles on their journey, and just because you're a nutritionist doesn't mean that you've got like zero problems. In actual fact, I've seen many nutritionists with, who really do try and have a lot of issues with food. And mine was always, at school I was fat, gay and ginger. And I say in the book what a combo that was in the 80s, 90s, and neither of those were accepted. And so I was just really struggling through my early adult life. And I then when my mother became a Weight Watchers leader, she used to do the classes. So I used to watch her and I used to model the counting calories or points or whatever it was back then. And I just started to develop a really unhealthy relationship with food. And I then got to a point in my early 20s where I discovered the gay scene and thinking in order to fit into this gay scene, I had to, go down this gym program, eating, 6 times a day, just to fit in on Saturday night when I go out. And that was a demon I had for a long, long time. And only recently I've gone like, actually, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to just be a bit healthier because, I've taken steroids myself. This is why I know about the pitfalls of them, because they're only temporary gains. And during anabolic steroids, you get into this fake reality of, you might look good in your body, but in actual fact, when you're doing steroids, you never actually think you're good enough. You never actually think, but you become extremely apathetic. You get moody, but you will never say it's about the steroids causing your mood or anger. You eat loads of rubbish. You can't sleep. And then you end up either taking other things to help you sleep and wind you down. And like, for me, I was like, that's the point. I was like, my sleep is more important than gaining 3 kilos. And then I just, I think there are people that argue that, you can do testosterone replacement therapy in healthier ways. And I'm not here to argue about that. I'm talking about, the unhealthy sides of doing anabolic steroids, and which I encountered. And I was doing them because I didn't love myself. And I didn't think that people would accept me if I had, I wasn't 100 kilos.
When you say people, what are you referring to? Who are you referring to there?
Probably the unhealthy relationships that I'm formed, whether it's friends or, we call it, whether it was like the people I used to hang around with to go to these parties where they're all on steroids, or I didn't think I could find a partner. And in actual fact, I had a partner who was also on steroids, and it was the most disastrous relationship I've ever had in my life, because we were, imagine that the picture, we were both sat with our backs up against each other, like, arguing. And I just didn't, neither of us felt good enough. But yeah, I had a lot of therapy and I've worked with myself. And then of course, recently I found psychedelics, and I'm obviously not going to go back into them too much, but I've been on mushroom retreats and ayahuasca retreats, which completely, I look at it like a rebirthing, where all my trauma, and it just taught me I feel it taught me the meaning of life a little bit. Forgive yourself, forgive others, and also get over yourself a little bit. And then that really integrated self-love to me. And I just realized that, yeah, I just need to get over myself really and just, you know.
But first off, going back to what you said, I'm really sorry that you had to face that kind of challenge, but I'm so glad that you seem to have learned so much from it as well. Do you feel like that instigated a lot of the things that you've learned with regards to self-love?
Yes, I think I had to go through, for me, my journey, I had to go through that. And and I'm not saying people have to go through that to be able to learn this. And I think what I've now got from it is the tools to be able to teach others it. And whether it's helping them to talk about forgiveness, self-love, imposter syndrome, or even diet and nutrition. I think I think, the Japanese have this concept called kintsugi. And it basically means when their pottery breaks, they rebuild it with gold. And so I wouldn't be, my father's, it's cool. It's a cool term to think about. Like, I would be, I'm sure if I didn't have any trauma in life, I would be a narcissist, you know? And I think it's taught me to just go to kind of understand and empathize with people a bit. And what's really nice is that when you actually become a bit more vulnerable with your clients, with your people online or whatever it is, you get so many people going, I'm in this situation too. I feel this. You really connect with people a bit better because ultimately, you can go and do whatever diet you want or whatever partying, steroids, whatever, fine, but I care for you and I just want you to be a bit healthier in what you're doing. I'm not judging you. This is why I've written the book. And, I love the fact that people can now pick up this book and just, even if they're not out of the closet and just read it and think, well, actually I can apply, whatever it is to themselves. So I think it's just, that's a big self-love process. And I'm still on it every day. I think you have to self-soothe every single day in order to self-love.
Okay. I disagree with self-soothe, but I'm going to tell you why in a second. Because I want to go back to the, I disagree with an aspect of self-soothe. Actually, let's dive into it now. So self-soothing, I think, in a way, is binge eating, right? Could be arguably you are soothing something that you feel, but not actually getting to the root cause of that issue and addressing it. Do you know what I mean? So there's a lot of things which might be temporarily soothing, but not fixing.
Yeah, I would argue that binge eating isn't necessarily a practice that's soothing, because it's more harming, and it's not good for you. But more of the case of like in loving yourself, for example, how do you respond to criticism? How do you respond when someone doesn't accept you? And I think you still have those innate deep trauma scars or, where you might have been rejected or whatever it's before. And you then have to think, well, how do I feel about this? Why is that? Maybe rationalize that person's behavior or whatever it is. I'm not saying that's a good way to do it, but this is how I do it. And I think, well, they're obviously acting that way because they're going through their own process or if I'm like, for example, I'll give you my feelings on my book release day. I was anxious. Yeah. Okay. I was super anxious. A piece of me is out in the world now. I'm opening myself to all this criticism. And I just think, wow, okay. I could have just sat and quietly and just carried on doing what I was doing on my day-to-day job, but I've done this now. It's out. I can't do anything about it. And yeah, I have to self-soothe thinking it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Fine, accept that. What's my intention of the book? To help people, and this is I just check myself and check my decisions a bit more and rather than blindly go into something like before I was taking steroids thinking it was a great idea, that's my my reasoning for it. But yeah, I think in the process of this, there are hurdles. They're going to be, you might go on the path of self-love and then all of a sudden you're, feel like you're back to square one because you, let's say, relapse on whatever it is. But this is all learning,
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with what you said. And I guess My issue with the self-soothing element, I think, is in terms of a difference in the way we perceive that terminology. But I agree with how you're using it.
Yeah, I do think that. And also, if you want to eat a whole cake, so what? Now and then,
Yeah.
if you go and do it
Yeah.
and just, own it, like you've eaten a whole cake, great. Now that's how I want to see people to kind of see things now. Is like there's a difference between eating a cake to numb your feelings and eating a cake to just be like, I really wanted it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. That's so true as well.
Yeah.
If you're doing it with like, this is good for my soul, I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm not doing it because I feel I need it. I'm doing it because I want it. That kind of thing. Yeah. I completely agree with you there.
It's better to eat a burger happy than a salad sad.
Yes. Yeah. Well, even like, when you're eating in a stressed state, the things that does to your body, how you partition nutrients, hormones, etc., your gut and your digestion is impaired. Like there's loads of reasons why you should be calm and,
This is why I'm also like, I'm not sure if these meal prepping food or takeaway services are that great for us, because part of your winding down to actually assimilate the food is making it and preparing it. And if you've got time, I know it's hard in this life we live now, is that, you might have 3 kids and, no time to prepare anything for yourself, but that's maybe something you have to work on. So.
Yeah, I agree with you. I can be quite bad at times, but I've got a couple of go-tos. Stir fries are like the easiest thing in the world, and it's something that I'll commonly do at lunch if I'm working from home. Load of vegetables, nice healthy oil, and then some lean protein. It's like my go-to quick meal. I can get that made in about 10 minutes. So
exactly. If you can spend 10 minutes, you spend 10 minutes ordering something, you can spend 10 minutes cooking something.
Yeah.
And it's just, my saving grace has been a veg box being delivered every week. That's just, I know that it's there, and it's just such a nice thing to have, that, because then you feel guilty if you're not using it. Oh, I do.
I was going to ask you, we've been talking about self-love, and I meant to address this at the start. I always think self-love is an interesting word, almost like what I would consider woo-woo. I'm going to use that term, right? Not in an offensive way, but in a sense, like, it's not a concept that we use in scientific literature, but it's really building someone's self-confidence up and improving their mental health so they feel confident with their own skin, right? That's essentially... To me, that's what it is. And therefore, that plays into everything that you do in life, from the choices that you have, from how you feel when you're speaking to someone in social situations, to the choices that you pick in the supermarket, etc. How would you respond to that? What do you think?
I completely agree with you. I think it has a knock-on effect. And I think the problem is we're so used to these like Instagram posts and books going, go love yourself. And it's like, you just want to tell someone to like, I just hate it. These books that like just so like, well, go and meditate for yourself, and that'll help you love yourself. Like, but if you're so far removed from self-love, the last thing you want to do is go and follow some of these like journaling practices or whatever it is. And I get they work for some, but it takes a lot of meditation to be able to start feeling self-love. And so I just would say that, my biggest tip is just try and find the easiest thing you can do, to start, whether it's having, something simple. Could you have a bath instead of watch TV at night? Could you throw away some old clothes that you don't like? Or, perhaps you can say no to going out for dinner that you don't want to go to. And you can, and just start getting, or even start doing exercise that you actually enjoy rather than feel you have to do. Or cook yourself something nice. It's just these simple things. They all start to build self-love, and it's again, it's not a process overnight. And I think, I'm very lucky. Like, my self-love journey has taken me probably, when I really started working on it, 2015, and I was only half conscious of it even a year ago.
Right.
So it's a huge, like, it's a lot of work, and this is why I say you have to work on it every single day, because there'll always be easy slips back into your old, your brain has created that neural network which is so easy to fall down into rather than create a new one and change your practice of where you think. So,
was this like a paradigm shift for you, like a realization where you're like, I need to change what I'm doing in life, or did it happen gradually?
Yes and no. And actually I faced a fair few obstacles along the way, and people haven't liked it. Some people who maybe they're not on their own pattern of self-love themselves, or it's triggering them because I don't want to be out in certain situations anymore. I don't want to engage in practices that are unhealthy for me. I just want to relax. I want to live in a relaxed life state. And so I think it's quite, when you go through this process, it can be quite intimidating for others. So you've got to think about that. But it's hard. It's one of the hardest things I've done, but it has completely changed how I view the world and how I want to help. Because I don't think any dieter no one can stick to a diet if they're not going to go down this self-love route, especially if you've got a lot of history of weight issues or trauma. You've got to address, this is the functional medicine pillar. Like the spirituality of it is never really totally considered. And that impacts everything from energy, gut health, weight loss, hair, skin, nails, whatever you tell me, there's not hormones. So, and, I think it's there's obviously the university of life you have to go on to start learning this. And part of that is not caring what others think. And that's quite a big hurdle to get over. And once you get that, you start to then gain, more confidence around yourself and your life choices. So this whole self-love angle I'm talking about, it allows you to really see what you want to do in life and what's important for you. Because everything else just seems noise then. So.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, a lot of what you said, I can look back at my own experience and think you mentioned imposter syndrome before and different elements. And I just think I had all of that. One of my friends said, this is a few years ago now, just back yourself. Like it was a very just off the cuff. It was like, just back yourself. Like whatever you're doing, like have self-confidence. Yeah. Like you need to back yourself. And that's all he said. And it really stuck in my head. Like every time I'm questioning what I'm doing, just being like, no, it's fine. I can shut that kind of little monkey mind, I call it, in the back of my. The
path to success is not like a straight road. It's very bumpy along the way, with most of it you questioning yourself. Yeah. And it can be like, 100 people can say what you're doing is amazing, and that one person tells you what you're doing is self-centered or whatever it is, and some criticism, and it completely sets you back. And so it's a really hard process to grasp. That's what I would, and you've just got to, even the times when you don't believe yourself, act like you believe yourself, it's, and the rest will come.
Yeah.
And particularly for nutritionists, I think, because we enter an industry, especially nutritional therapists, with imposter syndrome, because we've always been told we're not good enough. We're not good enough. You're not good enough to do this job because of regulation or whatever people's beliefs, or who cares now, there's room for everyone to exist in this, field. And I love now is like, I actually have this saying that is dietitians will tell you what to eat. Nutritional therapists will tell you how to love yourself. And there's no wrong in it. I'm not being wrong by saying that. And there's amazing nutritionists, there's amazing dietitians out there, but that's my journey, my personal journey with it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think there'll be some dietitians which disagree with you with that one, but
yeah. As I said, there's some great dietitians out there, but I just thought, I think it's I'm not wrong in saying dietitians tell you what to eat. That's right.
Yeah, I guess so. But I guess nutritional therapists also do the same in some instances, right?
Yeah, of course they do. That's why I'm just being a bit.
I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah,
and I'm playing
devil's
advocate.
No, I'm just throwing a spark in it. Yeah.
Okay.
Cause some drama.
Good.
No, I love dietitians and nutritional therapists and nutritionists. I don't have no I just think we all can exist in the same space. I think it's,
Yeah, I'm with
everyone
you
has a
on that
different
one.
operating system. We just it's like working with Windows and Apple, they're taught one way, we're taught another. It both work. Depends on the person coming to you,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. I'm going to use that. Windows and Apple. Okay.
That's exactly it is. You still can do stuff. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely fine. We're coming up on time. I've got a few questions for you before we end the show. One of them was actually based on, with regards to lifestyle, what would you change about the LGBTQ plus community as a whole in terms of how they look after themselves or view the world?
I would try to make them feel good enough. More, because they are. Every single person in the LGBTQ plus community has faced rejection at one point in their life. And I want to say to them that it's the war's over. Let's try and, do this and you are good enough.
Love that. Ask 3 questions to everyone that comes on the show. The first one is, what is the most impactful health change that you have made in your life and why?
My most impactful, I would say, is probably not to be perfect. Try not to be perfect.
Would you consider that a health change?
Yes, I think because I think I've always tried to go, I'm on the diet on Monday, I'm going to stay on it until Friday, and then it all goes out the window, and then I can't get back on it on Monday.
Yeah.
And now I'm just like, look, if I want some chocolate, it's okay. It's part of my program. It's, it's just to enjoy it a bit or, choose a healthier option naturally. So, and I think that's the main advice I could give here.
Brilliant. And how do you think healthcare interventions or healthcare in general can become more integrated with more LGBTQ plus focused interventions?
Well, I think my book is a good option for medics and also other nutritionists and dietitians inside, or even other allied professionals, not necessarily nutritionists, to be able to understand what goes on in our community. And just, I think there's conversations around now about LGBTQ plus health, but I don't want them to look at it in like a one dimension, this means this, like how trials are done. I want to be able to, open someone's eyes and understand to understand someone's health in the LGBTQ plus community isn't one dimensional, and there's not many factors you have to consider, and there's many different types of people in this sector, in this community. So there's not just the typical gay man that might go out partying at the weekend and taking steroids. There's needs for everyone. And as I say in my book, some things will be relevant for you, some things will not be. But please don't judge me for writing about it, but also educate yourself on what does go on in this community. So,
brilliant. And I've got one last question for you. But before I ask it, can you please tell the listeners where they can find you and what exciting projects you have coming up?
So my website is thenakednutritionist.co.uk. My Instagram is @nakednutrition, and my book is available in all bookshops or Amazon. Most people buy it from Amazon, but I know I shouldn't be promoting that. It's called Naked Nutrition, the LGBTQ plus guide to diet and lifestyle, or an LGBTQ plus guide. And that's why you can find me on that. So
perfect. I'll link to everything that we've spoken about, including your book, in the show notes.
Lovely.
Last question. Can you please provide the listeners with 3 quick tips to help improve their health and well-being from today?
First tip, I would say not to beast yourself, whether that's with exercise or diet, a moderate pace. You can exercise and eat obsessively. So we talked about all this through. I would say, find an eating pattern that works for you. Don't be pulled into having to, do intermittent fasting or low carb if that's what you're being told to do. any diet works if you stick to it. Let's put it that way. Or most diets work if you stick to them. So it's just finding a pattern of eating and what works for you. And, I would say just start identifying areas of your life so that are against the grain of self-love. And that could be what practices you do to yourself, what company you keep, your career, just to start to have an overall evaluation of this. And maybe if things are hard for you, reach out to talk to someone. I think that's important.
I love them. Great tips. Thank you so much, Daniel. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I've really enjoyed the conversation. I hope
Thank you for having me.
No, you are more than welcome. And I do hope that we can do this again soon.
Perfect. I look forward to hearing it.
Thank you for listening to the Functional Health Podcast. You can find links to everything that we talked about today in the show notes. If you have a second, please consider leaving a 5-star rating on iTunes. It really does make a huge difference and helps get this valuable information out and reach more people. Don't forget to subscribe so you can stay up to date and know whenever I release a new episode. You can connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, or our website, and all questions are welcome. As always, thanks to Josh Aurelia for all the editing, and thank you all for your support.